My fiancé texted, "I'm not in love with you anymore." I replied, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I called off the wedding, sold her dress, and left town. A week later, she was begging in front of my parents. I, too male, was sitting on the edge of our bed, the one we'd spent a whole Saturday assembling, when my phone lit up. It was just after 10 p.m. A message from Clara, 29, my fiancée. "I'm not in love with you anymore." Just that. 7 words. No call. No, we need to talk. It was the emotional equivalent of a drive-by shooting. I read it once, then twice. My thumbs hovered over the screen, 1,000 angry, wounded replies fighting for their chance to be born. In the end, what was the point? The message wasn't an invitation to a discussion, it was a verdict. I typed, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I put my phone on airplane mode and the silence in the apartment we shared became deafening. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator, a machine completely indifferent to the fact that my world had just fractured. I didn't feel rage, not yet. I just felt cold. A strange, surgical clarity washed over me. The objective was no longer to build a life, but to dismantle one with minimal collateral damage to myself. The next morning, I didn't jump into action. I couldn't. I made coffee and sat on the balcony for an hour, just watching the city wake up. The first step wasn't about revenge. It was about damage assessment. I pulled out my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Title: Project Disentanglement. I listed every shared financial commitment, every deposit, every vendor for the wedding. The wedding was in 3 months. The financial carnage was immediate. I spent the next week on the phone and email. It was a slow, grinding process. The venue was the first call and the biggest loss. The manager was polite but firm. Our $15,000 deposit was, as the contract stated, non-refundable. The caterer, a kind man named Mr. Henderson, sympathized and agreed to refund half of our deposit, a small mercy. The photographer was a different story. His response was a curt email. "My time was booked. The deposit is non-negotiable." Each no was a fresh wound, a reminder of the future I'd been investing in. By the end of the week, the total loss was just over $28,000. My money. I'd insisted on paying for everything, a gesture of love and security that now felt like a sick joke. I packed my own things first: clothes, books, work equipment. It took 2 days. I left her belongings untouched. I wasn't going to be vindictive, just decisive. I took the custom engagement ring to a jeweler. He offered me about 30% of what I paid. I accepted without a word. The money wasn't the point. Erasing the symbol was. The dress was harder. A $7,000 piece of art hanging in a closet. I took several high-quality photos and posted it on a popular pre-owned wedding dress website. I listed it for $4,000. Title: Custom Gown, Never Worn. Fiancé had a change of heart. I knew it could take months to sell, if ever. It was just another loose end. Finally, the apartment. Our lease had a hefty break fee. I called the landlord and explained the situation. He was a businessman, not a therapist. He agreed to waive the fee only if I found a suitable new tenant to take over the lease immediately. The hunt for a new tenant began. During this week, Clara's texts started. They followed a predictable pattern. "Can we talk? This is not how you handle things. You're being so dramatic and rash. My mother is worried. You owe our families an explanation." The sheer, breathtaking entitlement of it all was the only thing that cut through my numbness. She seemed to genuinely believe that she could drop a bomb on our life and then be angry at me for how I swept up the debris. I never replied. I just forwarded the more aggressive messages to a Clara folder in my email, just in case. One evening, I got a call from her mother, Karen. I let it go to voicemail. "Michael, darling," her message began, oozing false concern. "I know Clara can be impulsive, but you two need to talk this through. A real man would fight for my daughter, not run away from a little pre-wedding jitter." A little jitter. I added the voicemail file to the folder and started drafting an ad for the apartment. Update: things have gotten complicated. I found new tenants for the apartment, a young professional couple named Mark and Sarah. They were eager to move in at the start of next month. It was a huge relief. I arranged for professional movers to clear out my furniture and put it in storage for now. I was crashing on my brother's couch an hour away. With the logistics handled, the emotional fallout began to hit. The first wave was Clara's friends, sending me messages ranging from, "Are you okay?" to "How could you be so cruel to her?" I ignored them all. Then came the new level of entitlement. I got an email from Karen. It was no longer concerned. It was demanding. Michael, Clara needs to get her things from the apartment, but she can't possibly organize it all herself in her emotional state. You need to come and help her pack. Furthermore, she requires financial assistance for a new apartment's deposit, as you have left her in a precarious situation. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent Clara a single, direct email. Clara, a new tenant takes over the lease on the 1st. All of your belongings must be removed by then, as per the agreement with the landlord. I suggest you ask your mother for help. I will not be there. The response was nuclear. A flurry of texts about how I was a cold, heartless monster. Then a few days later, my brother called me while I was at work. Dude, you have visitors. I knew instantly. I drove to his place, my stomach in knots. And there, parked on the street, was Karen's car. She and Clara were standing on the sidewalk, arguing with my brother, who had his arms crossed, blocking the door. Michael? Clara cried out when she saw me, as if I were the one who had wronged her. Your brother won't let us in. This is my brother's home, Clara. You weren't invited, I said, my voice flat. We need to talk, Karen interjected, stepping forward. Your behavior is appalling. You have embarrassed our family. Clara made one mistake and you've destroyed everything. A mistake? I asked. Ending an engagement via text is a mistake, or was the mistake getting caught? Clara flinched, and for a second, I saw it. A flash of guilt. But it was quickly replaced by indignation. What is that supposed to mean? I didn't have proof of anything, just a gut feeling that her "not in love with you" text was hiding a more sordid truth. But I didn't need proof. The outcome was the same. It means we're done, I said. What do you want? I can't afford a new place on my own right away. Clara wailed. And I can't move everything myself. You have to help me. No, I don't, I said. This is the direct consequence of your choice. You're an adult. Figure it out. I started to walk inside. Karen shouted after me, we will be speaking to our lawyer. You can't just abandon her like this. The threat was so absurd, I almost laughed. I went inside and shut the door. They stood outside for another 10 minutes, then finally left. The next day I paid a service to have all of Clara's remaining belongings professionally packed and moved to a storage unit. I paid for the first month. I mailed the key to the unit to her mother's address via certified mail. A clean break. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The real nightmare was about to begin. Update 2. The call came from Mark, the new tenant, on the 2nd of the month, the day after his lease began. Michael, sorry to bother you, man, but we have a problem. There's someone in the apartment. He says he's living here. My blood ran cold. What's his name? Leo, Mark said. Says he's the old tenant's cousin. Leo, Clara's cousin, a permanent fixture on the couches of friends and family. It all clicked into place. Clara hadn't moved her things out. She had just moved her cousin in. I immediately called my lawyer, Sarah, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had helped my dad with a business issue. I explained the situation. She let out a long, slow whistle. Oh, she didn't, she said, a hint of admiration in her voice for the sheer audacity. Okay, Michael, do not contact her. Do not contact the cousin. This is now a legal matter. This is an illegal sublet and an unlawful detainer situation. We need to start the formal eviction process. And so began my education in tenant law. Sarah explained that we couldn't just throw him out. Leo had established residency. Illegal as it was, the police would not intervene without a court order. We had to serve him with a formal notice to quit, giving him a set number of days to vacate. We hired a process server. Leo, of course, refused to answer the door. It took 3 attempts before the server could legally post the notice and certify that it had been delivered. The notice period came and went. Leo stayed put. Mark and Sarah were, understandably, furious. They were staying in a hotel, and I was paying for it. It was my responsibility. The next step was filing an unlawful detainer lawsuit to get an eviction order from a judge. The filing fees, the lawyer's fees, the hotel bills, they were all piling up. Clara's little scheme was costing me thousands. During this time, I got a new email from Karen. I hear you are trying to evict my nephew, who is watching Clara's things for her. You are harassing our family and causing immense stress. Our lawyer has advised us that we have a strong case against you for breach of promise and the financial and emotional damages you have inflicted upon Clara. It was a bluff, and I knew it. Sarah confirmed that a breach of promise suit is virtually impossible to win in our state, especially when Clara was the one who ended it. The email, however, was a gift. It was a written admission that they knew Leo was there. The best part? My lawyer, through a bit of digging on social media, found out that Leo had been complaining to friends online about his new landlady, who was a total flake. He had posted a screenshot of a text conversation with Clara where she agreed to let him stay for $500 cash a month, just keep it on the down low. She wasn't just letting him crash. She was committing rental fraud while I paid the price. The court date for the eviction was set for 6 weeks later. 6 more weeks of paying for a hotel for my new tenants and a mortgage on a house I wasn't even living in. It was infuriating, a slow, grinding battle. But with every bill I paid, my resolve hardened. This was no longer just about moving on. It was about accountability. Final update. The eviction hearing was as anticlimactic as it was satisfying. Leo showed up, looking sullen. Clara and Karen were there for moral support. They tried to sit in the back, but the judge called Clara forward once her name came up. Sarah was magnificent. She presented the case clearly. The new valid lease with Mark and Sarah. The notice to quit. The mounting hotel bills. And then the final stroke. A certified copy of Leo's social media post, complete with the screenshot of his texts with Clara about the $500 cash rent. The judge looked from the screenshot to Clara. Her face, a mask of self-righteousness, crumbled. "Miss Dubois," the judge said, her voice dangerously soft. "Did you enter into a rental agreement with your cousin for an apartment you were no longer leasing?" Clara stammered. "I was just trying to help him." "By committing fraud?" The judge finished. The eviction was granted, effective immediately. The judge also issued a summary judgment ordering Clara to reimburse me for all the hotel costs, my lawyer's fees, and the court costs. It was a significant amount, far more than the original wedding deposits I'd lost. Clara and Karen stormed out of the courtroom. Leo just looked lost. I walked out feeling quiet. It wasn't the explosive victory I might have imagined. It was the quiet, methodical triumph of process, of consequences. Life has moved on. I got my own place in a different part of the city. I sold most of the furniture I'd put in storage. I wanted a fresh start. My brother and I took a weekend trip to the mountains, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely light. Last week, I got a notification from the wedding dress website. After almost 5 months, the dress had sold. A few days later, a letter arrived at my new address. It was a card from the buyer, a woman named Amanda. Inside was not a check, but a photograph. It was of her and her new husband, standing on a beach, beaming. She was wearing the dress and she looked radiant. Her note was short. "Michael, I don't know the story behind the dress, only that it was meant for a future that didn't happen. I wanted you to see the future it has now. Thank you. I hope you found your own peace." And looking at that photo, at the joy on their faces, I realized I had. The anger, the bitterness, it was gone. Replaced by a quiet sense of peace. Clara's actions had consequences, yes, but so had mine. I had chosen to be methodical, not malicious. I had chosen to rebuild, not just to tear down. Her betrayal doesn't define my story. The final chapter, the one I'm writing now, is all mine, and it's a much better story.